Gold, the ancient treasure, the shining beacon of wealth, a timeless currency and store of value. For thousands of years, empires have risen and fallen, societies have come and gone, but through it all, one thing has remained constant: the monetary value of gold. Today, we're diving deep into why gold is used as money and why, even in the modern world, it remains the most viable form of money humanity has ever used. It's certain that gold's lustrous beauty has captured the human imagination since it was first found in the ground. But it's not just its beauty that makes it valuable. It's the fact that gold and other precious metals have time and time again been used as money to enable the ready transaction of goods and services, replacing more limiting barter systems. From ancient civilizations' monetary beginnings to today's complex modern economies, gold has played a critical role in defining wealth and value. Historians trace the earliest use of gold as a form of currency to over 5,000 years ago in ancient Lydia, which was located in modern Turkey. According to Greek philosopher Herodotus, the Lydians were the first people to use gold and silver coins with a standardized purity for general circulation. As stated by Herodotus,
"So far as we have any knowledge, they were the first people to introduce the use of gold and silver coins, and the first who sold goods by retail."
Composed of about 55% gold and 43% silver, the value of a typical Lydian lion trite has been estimated to be worth anywhere from a month's subsistence to 11 sheep to 10 goats to just 3 bottles of wine. Metallic coinage continued to be used in the ancient world, though much of it was based on the much more abundant silver, with rarer gold handling larger transactions. As was the Roman Empire, so was their currency all over the ancient Western world. In addition to gold and silver, the Romans also used copper and bronze. Given the Roman Empire's proclivity for the production of money, the origin of the word mint is ascribed to coinage manufacture in 269 BC near the Roman temple of Juno Moneta, a goddess who became the personification of money. A notable event in coin design occurred when Julius Caesar issued coins bearing his own living portrait. This bold approach to coin branding amplified the use of propaganda and personal representation in currency during that time. Another insidious feature of Roman currency, and an ominous precursor for future money in exchange, was the inflationary debasement and replacement of coins over the centuries, usually by incrementally removing the gold or silver within. In fact, the issue of currency debasement in ancient Rome was pervasive. Securing the empire required an extensive army and expensive forays to the outer realms. Paying for this hegemony necessitated the covert devaluing of the coinage, making Roman citizens poorer for their money. One consequence of continuing dilution of Roman coinage was its replacement by the solidus, a highly pure gold coin widely used in later Rome and in the ensuing Byzantine Empire. The coins were often about 23 carats and 95% gold. It remained so for 1,000 years until it too began to be diluted and diminished. The debasement was gradual at first, but then accelerated rapidly, as evidenced in this chart. Gold, as the ultimate choice, as a medium of exchange, lies in its inherent qualities, as described by the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle.
Money should be durable. A good money shouldn't fall apart in your pocket, nor evaporate when you aren't looking. It should be indestructible. This is why we don't use fruit for money. It can rot, be eaten by insects, and so on. It doesn't last. Money must be divisible. A good money needs to be convertible into larger and smaller pieces without losing its value, to fit a transaction of any size. This is why we don't use things like porcelain for money. Half a Ming vase isn't worth much. A good money must be consistent, something that always looks the same, so that it's easy to recognize, each piece identical to the next. This is why we don't use things like oil paintings for money. Each painting, even by the same artist, of the same size, and composed of the same materials, is unique. It's also why we don't use real estate as money. One piece is always different from another piece. Money must be convenient. A good money packs a lot of value into a small package and is highly portable. This is why we don't use other metals like lead or even copper. The coins would have to be too huge to handle easily and still be of sufficient value. Money must be intrinsically valuable. A good money is something many people want or can use. This is critical to money functioning as a means of exchange. Gold is relatively scarce, as all the gold ever mined would fit in less than 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. It's also virtually indestructible.
At this point in history, it's natural to ask, why use gold and silver and other coined metals as they came to be classified? Why not just shoes and eggs or swords and plowshares? Esteemed free market economist Murray Rothbard explains this in his venerable examination, What Has Government Done to Our Money? The following important passages fundamentally break down the concept of money and explains exactly what it is and is not.
Direct exchange of useful goods and services would barely suffice to keep an economy going above the primitive level, hardly better than pure self-sufficiency. The two basic problems are indivisibility and lack of coincidence of wants. Thus, if Smith has a plow, which he would like to exchange for several different things, say eggs, bread, and a suit of clothes, how can he do so? How can he break up the plow and give part of it to a farmer and another part to a tailor? Even where the goods are divisible, it is generally impossible for two exchangers to find each other at the same time. If A has a supply of eggs for sale and B has a pair of shoes, how can they get together if A wants a suit? Clearly, any sort of civilized economy is impossible under direct exchange. Eventually, society discovered the route that permits a greatly expanding economy known as indirect exchange. Under indirect exchange, you sell your product not for a good, which you need directly, but for another good, which you then, in turn, sell for the good you want. It is actually the marvelous instrument that permits civilization to develop. Consider the case of the farmer who wants to buy the shoes made by the shoemaker, but the shoemaker doesn't want any of the farmer's goods. So, the farmer finds what the shoemaker does want, which happens to be butter. The farmer finds a butter maker with which to sell his produce, and then exchanges that butter for shoes from the shoemaker. He first buys the butter not because he wants it directly, but because it will permit him to get his shoes. Similarly, Smith, a plow owner, will sell his plow for one commodity which he can more readily divide and sell, like butter in the previous case, and will then exchange parts of the butter for eggs, bread, clothes, and all other needs. In both cases in this example, the preference for butter, the reason there is extra demand for it beyond simple consumption, is its greater marketability. If one good is more marketable than another, if everyone is confident that it will be more readily sold, then it will come into greater demand because it will be used as a medium of exchange. It will be the medium through which one specialist can exchange his product for the goods of other specialists. Now, just as there is a great variety of skills and resources, so there is a variety in the marketability of goods. Some goods are more widely demanded than others, some are more divisible into smaller units without loss of value, some more durable over long periods of time, some more transportable over large distances. All of these advantages make for greater marketability. It is clear that in every society, the most marketable goods will be gradually selected as the media for exchange. As they are more and more selected as media, the demand for them increases because of this use, and so they become even more marketable. The result is a reinforcing spiral. More marketability causes wider use as a medium, which causes more marketability. Eventually, one or two commodities are used as general media in almost all exchanges, and these are called money. Historically, many different goods have been used as media, but through the centuries, two commodities, gold and silver, have emerged as money in the free competition of the market and have displaced the other commodities. Both are uniquely marketable, are in great demand as ornaments, and excel in the other necessary qualities. In recent times, silver, being relatively more abundant than gold, has been found more useful for smaller exchanges, while gold is more useful for larger transactions. The important thing is that whatever the reason, the free market has found gold and silver to be the most efficient monies. This process, the cumulative development of a medium of exchange on the free market, is the only way money can become established. Money cannot originate in any other way, neither by everyone suddenly deciding to create money out of useless material, nor by a government calling bits of paper money. For embedded in the demand for money is knowledge of the money prices of the immediate past. In contrast to directly used consumers or producers' goods, money must have pre-existing prices on which to ground a demand. But the only way this can happen is by beginning with a useful commodity under barter, and then adding demand for a medium for exchange to the previous demand for direct use. e.g., for ornaments in the case of gold. Thus, government is powerless to create money for the economy. It can only be developed by the processes of the free market. A most important truth about money now emerges from our discussion. Money is a commodity. Learning this simple lesson is one of the world's most important tasks. So often have people talked about money as something much more or less than this. Money is not an abstract unit of account, divorceable from a concrete good. It is not a useless token only good for exchanging. It is not a claim on society. It is not a guarantee of a fixed price level. It is simply a commodity. It differs from other commodities in being demanded mainly as a medium of exchange. But aside from this, it is a commodity. And like all commodities, it has an existing stock. It faces demands by people to buy and hold it, etc. Like all commodities, its price in terms of other goods is determined by the interaction of its total supply or stock and the total demand by people to buy and hold it. People buy money by selling their goods and services for it, just as they sell money when they buy goods and services. The emergence of money was a great boon to the human race. Without money, without a general medium of exchange, there could be no real specialization, no advancement of the economy above a bare primitive level. With money, the problems of indivisibility and coincidence of wants that plagued the barter society all vanish. Now Jones can hire laborers and pay them in money. Smith can sell his plow in exchange for units of money. The money commodity is divisible into small units, and it is generally acceptable by all. And so all goods and services are sold for money, and then money is used to buy other goods and services that people desire. Because of money, an elaborate structure of production can be formed, with land, labor services, and capital goods cooperating to advance production at each stage and receiving payment in money. The establishment of money conveys another great benefit. Since all exchanges are made in money, all the exchange ratios are expressed in money, and so people can now compare the market worth of each good to that of every other good. If a TV set exchanges for 3 ounces of gold and an automobile exchanges for 60 ounces of gold, then everyone can see that one automobile is worth 20 TV sets on the market. These exchange ratios are prices, and the money commodity serves as a common denominator for all prices. Only the establishment of money prices on the market allows the development of a civilized economy, for only they permit businessmen to calculate economically. Businessmen can now judge how well they are satisfying consumer demands by seeing how the selling prices of their products compare with the prices they have to pay productive factors, their costs. Since all these prices are expressed in terms of money, the businessmen can determine whether they are making profits or losses. Such calculations guide businessmen, laborers, and landowners in their search for monetary income on the market. Only such calculations can allocate resources to their most productive uses, to those uses that will most satisfy the demands of consumers. Because gold is a general medium, it is most marketable. It can be stored to serve as a medium in the future as well as the present, and all prices are expressed in its terms. Because gold is a commodity medium for all exchanges, it can serve as a unit of account for present and expected future prices. It is important to realize that money cannot be an abstract unit of account or claim, except insofar as it serves as a medium of exchange.
After this fundamental examination of what money is, what defines it, and how it's chosen and created, we move through time to the 19th and early 20th centuries when many countries adopted the classical gold standard, a period where national currencies were directly linked to a specific weight of gold. One money facilitated freedom of trade, investment, and travel throughout that trading and monetary area, with the consequent growth of specialization and the international division of labor. In this case, weights were assigned, so $1 was equivalent to 1/10 of a gold ounce, while the British pound sterling was slightly less than 1/4 of a gold ounce, and so on for each nation's currency. This system ensured that exchange rates between different national currencies were fixed, similar to how weights and measures are standardized. Gold wasn't chosen arbitrarily by governments. It evolved as the preferred monetary standard due to its stability and desirability in the free market. Importantly, the supply of gold was governed by market forces, not by government printing presses. The gold standard provided an automatic check on government inflation. Economist David Hume explained in the mid-18th century, if a country like France inflated its currency, Increased prices would lead to higher imports and reduced exports, resulting in a balance of payments deficit. This deficit would be corrected as foreign countries exchanged francs for gold, forcing France to contract its currency to retain its gold reserves. Despite some government interventions, such as monopolizing the mint or creating paper money, the gold standard largely kept business cycles in check. It provided a stable monetary order that fostered international trade, investment, and economic growth. Though not perfect, the classical gold standard remains one of the best monetary systems the world has known, balancing business cycles and enabling free global trade and investment. So what happened? If the classical gold standard was so effective, why did it end? Let's unravel the reasons behind the breakdown of the classical gold standard and its implications for the global economy. The breakdown occurred because governments failed to uphold their monetary promises. National currencies like pounds, dollars, and francs were supposed to be redeemable in gold, but during World War I, governments inflated their paper and bank currency supplies to finance the war effort. This severe inflation made it impossible for them to maintain their pledges, leading them to abandon the gold standard and declare bankruptcy. Except for the United States, which entered the war later and managed to keep its dollar's redeemability intact, most warring nations experienced monetary chaos. This period saw the rise of freely fluctuating exchange rates, competitive devaluations, and restrictive economic policies like exchange controls, tariffs, and quotas. These so-called dirty floats led to depreciated national currencies and a breakdown of international trade and investment. The economic instability caused by these fluctuations was widely recognized as a path to disaster. In response to this chaos, politicians and economists sought ways to restore the stability and freedom provided by the classical gold standard and the fateful decisions that prevented it. After World War I, the sensible approach would have been for countries to return to the gold standard at redefined rates, reflecting the reality of depreciated currencies. For instance, the British pound, traditionally valued at $4.86, had fallen to about $3.50 on the free market. Britain and other nations should have returned to gold at these new rates to restore economic stability. However, Britain chose to return to gold at the old rate of $4.86 for national prestige and to re-establish London as a financial center. This decision required severe deflation, which was politically impossible due to rigid wage rates and a growing welfare state. Instead, Britain continued inflating its money supply, leading to depressed exports and high unemployment throughout the 1920s. To navigate this economic challenge, Britain spearheaded the creation of the gold exchange standard at the Genoa Conference of 1922. This new system allowed countries to redeem their currencies in gold bars or in other currencies like the dollar and pound, rather than in gold coins. This prevented citizens from using gold in everyday life and permitted more paper and bank inflation. The gold exchange standard led to a pyramiding effect. US dollars were backed by gold, British pounds by dollars, and other European currencies by pounds. This allowed Britain and Europe to inflate their currencies unchecked, leading to economic instability. The inevitable collapse came in 1931, as countries like France tried to redeem their sterling balances for gold, leading to Britain abandoning the gold standard entirely. The aftermath of World War I left a trail of economic devastation and political instability, creating a tumultuous time for global monetary systems. As we've seen, the gold standard, a system where currencies were pegged to a fixed amount of gold, proved to be a cornerstone of international economic stability. However, governments shattered this system with warfare. Nations abandoned the gold standard, leading to a chaotic period of fluctuating exchange rates, trade barriers, and economic warfare. In the absence of a gold standard, governments turned to fiat currencies, backed only by the government's promise to pay. This shift gave governments more control over their economies, but also increased the risk of inflation and economic instability. The economic chaos of the 1930s, characterized by competitive devaluations and trade restrictions, was a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked monetary policy. It highlighted the need for international cooperation and a stable monetary system. To prevent a recurrence of the economic turmoil of the 1930s, world leaders gathered at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in 1944. The conference aimed to establish a new international monetary system that would promote economic stability and growth. This was deemed as a landmark moment in international monetary cooperation. It aimed to stabilize exchange rates and promote economic growth after the devastation of World War II. At the heart of the Bretton Woods system was the U.S. dollar, which was pegged to gold. Other currencies were in turn pegged to the dollar. This system provided stability and predictability in international trade and finance. However, the seeds of decline were sown early on. The U.S. government, eager to stimulate economic growth, adopted expansionary monetary policies, leading to inflation. This undermined the value of the dollar and put pressure on the gold standard. As the U.S. continued to print more money, foreign governments began to lose confidence in the dollar. They started redeeming their dollar reserves for gold, draining the U.S. gold reserves. In 1971, President Nixon took the drastic step of suspending the convertibility of the dollar into gold, effectively ending the Bretton Woods system. The collapse of Bretton Woods marked the beginning of a new era of floating exchange rates. In 1968, the U.S. government devised a solution, the two-tier gold market. The official rate of $35 per ounce of gold would be maintained for transactions between governments, but a free market for gold would be allowed to operate independently. This plan aimed to isolate the official system from the free market. However, it backfired. The free market price of gold continued to rise, reflecting the declining faith in the dollar. This rise exposed the true value of the dollar and further eroded confidence. And contrary to predictions, the free market price of gold soared, reaching $125 per ounce by 1973. This was a stark contrast to the predicted fall and a clear indicator of global distrust in the dollar. The two-tier gold market only delayed the inevitable. The U.S. continued printing money, gold reserves dwindled, and the free market gold price exposed the dollar's weakness. This unsustainable situation ultimately led to the collapse of the Bretton Woods system. In 1971, President Nixon made a series of dramatic moves. He imposed wage and price controls to combat inflation and, more importantly, unilaterally ended the convertibility of the dollar to gold due to European threats for redemption of dollars to gold. This effectively severed the last link between the U.S. dollar and gold for the first time and forever. The Smithsonian Agreement, reached later that year, attempted to salvage the fixed exchange rate system. However, it proved to be a fragile construct. The dollar remained overvalued, and many European currencies were undervalued. Continued U.S. inflation and the growing supply of dollars in the global economy put immense pressure on the system. The free market price of gold soared, reflecting the declining value of the dollar. By early 1973, the Smithsonian Agreement had collapsed. The world moved towards a system of floating exchange rates, where currency values are determined by market forces of supply and demand, but lacking a world medium of exchange, and continuing decline of the dollar, unchecked balance of payment deficits, it was doomed to be smashed against the rocks of economic reality, and gold zoomed up to $215 an ounce. The collapse of Bretton Woods ushered in an era of floating exchange rates, where currencies were no longer pegged to gold or to each other. This shift, while initially seen as a solution, soon revealed its own set of challenges. Initially, floating exchange rates seemed to offer benefits. American exporters, for example, enjoyed a boost as the falling dollar made their goods more competitive abroad. However, this benefit came at a cost. The declining dollar made imports more expensive, leading to higher prices for consumers. Rapid currency fluctuations also created uncertainty for businesses and investors, hindering economic growth. While many economists celebrated the move away from gold, the rising price of gold served as a stark reminder of the dollar's declining value. This period also witnessed a surge in inflation, raising concerns about the stability of purely fiat currency systems. In response to the challenges of floating exchange rates, there's been a growing push for international cooperation. This includes efforts to coordinate monetary policies, harmonize inflation rates, and even move towards a global currency issued by a world reserve bank. However, the prospect of a global currency raises concerns. A single global currency, controlled by a central authority, could lead to unchecked inflation and the erosion of national sovereignty. The international monetary system continues to evolve, grappling with the challenges of globalization, inflation, and the search for stability. The future remains uncertain, but the lessons of the past, the successes and failures of Bretton Woods and the subsequent era of floating exchange rates offer valuable insights for navigating the complexities of the global economy.